Hey guys, what's going on? It's Bread Chicken here, bringing you the second episode of Battlefield 3 info you might want to know. This is the interview with executive producer Patrick Bach. He is working on Battlefield 3. So if you are excited for this game, pay attention to these questions and answers that Patrick gives us, and hopefully you will enjoy this interview. So, we're on question 4 here, part 2. Here it is. Is the commander position from Battlefield 2 coming back into Battlefield 3? Basically, if you don't know what commander was, you were the commander of your team. You didn't actually play on the battlefield, but you could do like mortar strikes, UAVs, supply drops, and drop vehicles and stuff like that. And basically, you commanded your team. You set objectives, and basically, you were the leader. You were the guy that set everything up, and the other team had a guy that was doing the exact same thing. And so, Patrick starts off by saying that not everyone can jump into that position and get into it and know exactly what to do and how to play the role of commander. And that was one of the challenges they faced with this role. He also goes on to say that you could argue it was a great feature, but looking at the numbers, you could say that no one used it. Which is true, because the problem with commander was that only 2 people could use it at once during a game. I mean, there was a commander for your team and a commander for the other team. And you couldn't really get time learning how to use the commander role because you couldn't rarely become the commander. He also talks about how hardcore people liked it a lot, and they used it more than, casual people. And the problem with that was most everyone was casual. They weren't really hardcore, and they didn't know how to use commander that well, so they just usually played with friends and just did objectives. They didn't care about who was commanding or anything like that, and that was why they didn't put it in Battlefield 2, or Bad Company 2, my bad. Was because that they didn't want to give a very intense role or a role that not everyone could use and put it into a game. It was a creative feature, but they didn't want to put it in Bad Company 2, and they wanted it to lower the threshold so that everyone could use it. So they actually did that. They had so you can issue orders to your squad. You could say, let's go to A first. You could point out enemies. You could also use UAVs, which from those little stations, which was pretty cool. And he says, we know where our boundaries are for that, so they probably are going to use Bad Company 2 as an example for Battlefield 3. So that was the answer to that question. Question number 5 was that since Battlefield 2, you've toyed with the amount of classes, because Battlefield 2 had 7, Battlefield 1943 had 3, and Bad Company 2 had 4. So they were asking, do you know the sweet spot for the amount of classes that you want in Battlefield 3? And to my surprise, Patrick said yes, and they think the sweet spot is 4. I would actually like a 5th class, but just so you can make your own class, basically, and not have to go off one of the preset ones. But he said that because there's 4, you basically have a starting point from what type of gamer you want to be playing the game. So you basically ask the question, who am I, what kind of role do I want to play, do I want to be a support character, or do I want to be recon and snipe and stuff like that. It says that's a great starting point. You start from there, and basically with all of the add-ons and perks and stuff they added, like in Battlefield 2, basically you could have around 1,000 classes that were different. I don't know if that's true, but he says that number, so that was pretty interesting. He also says that the rock, paper, scissors theory is still the foundation of every Battlefield game. So I didn't really know what this meant at first because we are talking about classes, but he talks about how that balance is a very key subject in the Battlefield franchise. So that's what he was talking about, rock, paper, scissors. If you don't know what that game is, basically rock beats scissor, scissor beats paper, paper beats rock, and basically everything has a counter to it. And he says that a lot of people have come up to him and said, you should increase the power of that gun, or you should make this gun better, or you should add nukes and crazy kill streaks. And he said that his response to this is, how is that fun for the person getting shot at? Still, I don't really know if this has to do with the classes that much, more as countering and balancing issues, but he still goes on to say it in this question. So he says that everything needs to have a counter, which is true. If there's not a counter to a gun, you could just destroy. So that was spot on, I guess. He said that he compares Battlefield to a sport. You have a game with a set of rules, but there are a million ways of playing that game still, even though the rule set is very solid and it hasn't changed for 100 years. I'm still not a little convinced by that. I'm kind of questioning that a little bit. Yes, the rule set is very strict. Well, not very strict, but it is very solid, as he said. But you can't really evolve the way of playing a game that much, in my opinion. I mean, you can't evolve playing Battlefield for 100 years, but I sort of get where he's coming from and what he's trying to say. And yeah, that was a pretty good idea. I still don't understand why he was bringing up balancing issues during a question about classes, because basically the classes in Battlefield Bad Company 2, you could customize everything. I mean, you could have a shotgun sniper class. It was just, yeah, I don't really see where he was going with that, but it was a good idea. He also adds on at the end that there's always a way to counter the opponent, like football or basketball or soccer. The game is always evolving, yet the rules are the same. People adapt and find new ways. So yeah, I agree with that, but I still don't know what that has to do with the question. He answered the question though. The sweet spot is 4. 4 classes, and so expect to see that in Battlefield 3. The last question for today, and question number 6, is how was hardcore mode received? Was there a broad adoption of this game type? And basically this answer is pretty short. It says that I think it goes in waves, and it's also about your daily form. He's talking about how it wasn't really a tradition to go online and only play hardcore. People would play hardcore if they felt like they were playing really good, or they weren't doing good in the regular game types, and maybe they would do better in hardcore mode. How did they feel about their day? Maybe they were sad and wanted to not see the HUD or whatever. And that's how he went and talked about it. He also says, I think the hardcore mode is a brilliant idea, and we could probably turn it up a notch to make it even more hardcore in the future. It's a good way of seeing the game through a new angle. This actually feeds my little suspicion of that they're going to make this game almost like a simulation. Well, obviously not a simulation, because that would require, vests that would puncture and hurt your body a little bit, but he wants to make it even more hardcore than possible and actually turn it up a notch, which was a little bit surprising. That's why I'm still getting the vibe of they want this game to be very... You're in the army, basically, and you are fighting terrorists, and you are in this simulation, and it might be a very hardcore game, like MLG status, actually people playing this game in tournaments because it's so balanced, it's so hardcore, and it's so real. I'm still a little shaky about that, because he keeps on bringing the idea of it being hardcore, it being really realistic, it being balanced, it being basically perfect. But, I'm still excited. I'm excited for that. If that actually comes to fruition and it is the most balanced game out there, it is the most hardcore, if you would like it to be, then I'm all for it. The more features, the better, I guess. And balancing is great. I mean, who doesn't like balancing? I mean, do you want M16s all over the place destroying? I don't think so, but yeah, or MP40s. That'd be terrible. So, thank you guys for watching. If you'd like to see more, just, send me a comment saying, I like this, I like what you're doing. That would help a lot. Subscribe if you're not and you like this video and want to hear more. I'm Breaded Chicken, and I'm out. Peace.